What particular things do you like best about the paper?
Well, it's blackness.
Let's do it. What's going on, guys? Keith Allen here again, and today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of renting and owning a house. First topic we're going to talk about is appreciation. When buying a home, you're essentially buying an asset. That means it's going to appreciate over time. What this really means is that over time, your house will go up in value. Yeah, of course, it can depreciate, but it'll always go back up over time because of demand. Building equity. We talked about equity in the last video. So yes, when you buy a home, you're also paying the loan off, but you're also paying yourself as well. So that means every month when you pay your mortgage on time, you're building more equity in the house. The best part about building equity is you were going to pay on the mortgage that you were going to pay anyway. Tax write-offs. When you own a home, you get the benefit of claiming the interest on the home as a tax deductible. Another pro is it's your home. Because it's your home, you can renovate the home however you want to your likeness, and you don't have to answer to any landlord. Now, there are some homes that have restrictions in the HOA community, but outside of those communities, the home is yours and you can do whatever you want to do with it. Stable monthly payment. Most people who buy a home will finance their home under what they call a fixed mortgage payment. This simply means that you're going to pay the same principal and interest until the mortgage is paid off. Now we're going to talk about cons to owning a home. The first one, which may sound crazy, but your home is not always an asset. Now for some people, when owning a home, a mortgage can be nothing more than an extra bill. And what sucks about it is that you're stuck with it. That's why I always recommend, as a first-time home buyer, when you're buying your first home, buy a multi-unit property. Instead of having to pay a mortgage every month, get a tenant in place and make the tenant pay your mortgage every month for you. Now, for those of you who don't know what a multi-unit property is, take a look at some of my old videos and educate yourself. The 30-year mortgage. Most people who buy a home is going to finance their home under a 30-year mortgage. What this means is that you as a homeowner is essentially responsible for this home for 30 years. Now, do you really have to stay in the home for 30 years? Of course not. Most people don't stay anywhere for 30 years. But what you can do is stay there long enough, build up some equity, sell the home, and you can even come out on top. But sometimes that can scare some people away from owning a home. The upkeep. When you own a home, you are 100% responsible for everything inside the home. Now, not to scare you away, because when you do buy a home, there are all types of inspections and warranties that can protect you from the home. But I still understand why that can scare a lot of people away from wanting to own a home. High upfront costs. Sometimes when you buy a home, there could be a lot of upfront money required to get into one. Also, when buying a house, it takes a lot more due diligence from a potential buyer, and that can scare some people off. Liquidity. Remember, buying a home is a long-term investment, so it doesn't always go up in value as fast like things like stocks or other assets. So it may take some time for you to get the return back on your investment. Now we're going to talk about the pros of renting. You can basically leave whenever you want to. Unlike a homeowner, a renter can basically leave whenever they decide to, because they're not stuck with a 30-year mortgage. Repairs are not your responsibility. When you rent a home and something breaks inside of it, the only thing you have to do is call the landlord. You don't have to worry about fixing anything, and that could be cool because some of those things are very costly. The upfront costs. The upfront cost when renting a home is not as expensive as when you're buying. Most of the time, a tenant only has to pay the first and the last month and also a deposit. Now we're going to talk about cons to renting a home. You can't change the property. Unlike owning a home, you as a renter, if you want to do anything to the property, you have to ask permission from the landlord. You want to paint the house? Ask the owner. You want to have pets? Ask the owner. You want to have other people live there besides you? Ask the owner. Another thing, sometimes the landlord will even raise the rent if you have other people inside the home with you. Which brings me to my next con to renting, rent control. There's something on the voters ballot this year called rent control. Now, if this passes in favor of homeowners with tenants, you as the renter can almost guarantee that there will be a raise in your rent and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, we always talk about saving the community, but you can't save the community if the landlord raises your rent and you have to move out of the community. You're not building any equity. When you pay rent to someone else, you're not building any wealth for yourself. You will never see any of that money ever again. In a nutshell, somebody's probably getting rich off the money that you work hard for. Your monthly payment will most likely change over time. It's very rare that when you rent a home that your rent is going to stay the same. And the reason for that is just simply inflation. Everything goes up with inflation and rent is no exception. Now, although your landlord's monthly payment will stay the same because of the fixed rate we talked about from owning a home that they have, they will of course want to be compensated for what the market says that they can charge, and they have every right to do so. Before I end this video, let me say this. I have just explained the pros and cons from owning and renting a home, but I want my people to remember this. There was actually a time when people of color couldn't even buy real estate legally. It was so bad that our people had to put their properties in their counterparts' names. Now imagine for a second, you buy a home, you put your hard money up, and you can't put your own property in your name legally? And you know what's worse? Sometimes those counterparts stole the properties of those people and they couldn't do anything about it. Reason being is because legally, the properties wasn't even in their name. I say all that to say this. It's not a privilege to own real estate, it's our right. It's our responsibility to take what's ours. Again, it's another conversation with me, Keith Allen Jr. Thanks for tuning in. Peace of community.